Hey, tonight we're going to talk about the time when Rome and Greece collided, when the most powerful empire of the West met the oldest culture of the East. Spoiler, it wasn't great for everyone involved. If you're enjoying these bedtime stories about weird history, I'd really appreciate a like or subscribe. I'm curious where you're listening from. Drop a comment with your location and what time it is there. I know, you're trying to fall asleep and I'm about to tell you about wars and conquests, but trust me, it gets better. Now find a cozy spot, take a slow, deep breath and let your body sink into comfort as we journey back in time together. The year is 231 BC, and congratulations, you've just woken up in your small home in Athens, Greece. The good news, you're alive in one of the most cultured cities in the Mediterranean world. The bad news, your stomach is already cramping from hunger, and the thin wool blanket did little to keep you warm during the night. You push yourself up from your sleeping mat, your back aching from another night on the hard surface. Small bits of straw stick to your hair and clothing. The morning air is cool against your skin, and you can see your breath forming small clouds in the dim light, filtering through the single window of your modest home. As you step outside, the familiar sounds and smells of Athens greet you. The scent of baking bread mingles with the less pleasant odours of a city without proper sewage. Your sandals slap against the stone streets as you make your way toward the agora, the centre of Athenian life. You need to buy food, but more importantly, you need information. Athens isn't what it used to be. You've heard the elders tell stories of its golden age, when philosophers like Socrates, Plato and Aristotle walked these same streets, when the Parthenon was newly built and gleaming white instead of weathered, when Athens ruled the seas with its powerful navy. Those days are long gone. Now your city is just one of many Greek city-states caught in the endless political games between the larger Hellenistic kingdoms that emerged after Alexander the Great's death. To the north, Macedon under King Antigonus Doson is asserting its control. To the east, the Seleucid Empire stretches deep into Asia. To the south, Ptolemaic Egypt controls many islands and coastal territories. And far to the west, across the Adriatic Sea, a new power is rising, Rome. You've heard stories about these Romans. They're said to be a practical people, skilled in warfare and engineering, but lacking the sophisticated culture of Greeks. Most Athenians don't pay much attention to Rome. After all, what could these Western barbarians possibly want with Greece? Little do you know that events are already in motion that will bring these two worlds crashing together. As you enter the agora, the central marketplace is already bustling with activity. Merchants shout about their wares, citizens argue politics, and slaves carry goods for their masters. You approach a fruit seller, exchanging a few coins for some figs and olives. Your stomach grumbles appreciatively as you pop an olive into your mouth, the rich, salty flavour momentarily distracting you from your worries. Any news from the north? You ask the merchant, who always seems to know the latest gossip. The man leans forward, his breath heavy with garlic from his morning meal. They say the Illyrians are causing trouble again, raids on Greek merchant ships, bad for business. You nod thoughtfully. Illyria, the region across the Adriatic Sea from Italy, has long been a source of pirates and raiders, but this seems like a distant problem, nothing that would affect your daily life in Athens. If only you knew how wrong you were. The Illyrians, under their ambitious Queen Tutor, have indeed been raiding ships with increasing boldness. Among those ships are vessels belonging to Italian merchants from Rome, and Rome, unlike the fractious Greek cities, doesn't take kindly to threats against its commercial interests. In the Roman Senate, heated debates are taking place. The Republic is still recovering from its exhausting but victorious First Punic War against Carthage, but many senators are pushing for action against these Illyrian pirates. But you know nothing of this as you finish your simple breakfast and head toward the workshop where you labour as a craftsman. Your hands are calloused from years of working with tools, shaping metal into useful objects. Today you're working on a bronze lamp for a wealthy client, carefully hammering the soft metal into an elegant shape. Your workshop is small but well lit by the Mediterranean sun, streaming through the open doorway. The rhythmic sound of your hammer striking metal fills the space, occasionally interrupted by the sizzle of hot metal being quenched in water. Your muscles warm with the effort and you fall into the familiar pattern of work that has defined your life. As the day progresses, you hear raised voices outside. Stepping into the street, you see a crowd gathering around a man who appears to be a merchant. His clothes are travel-worn and his face is red with anger or excitement. The Romans have sent an embassy to Queen Tutor, he announces to the growing crowd. They demand she stop the piracy or face consequences. Someone in the crowd laughs. What consequences? What can Rome do across the sea? The merchant shakes his head. Don't underestimate them. I've been to Italy. The Romans are not like us. They're organised, disciplined, and they hold grudges. You listen with mild interest, but the affairs of distant kingdoms and republics seem far removed from your daily struggle to earn enough drachmas to feed yourself. With a shrug, you return to your work, the future of the Mediterranean world temporarily forgotten amid the immediate concerns of completing your commission. Months pass, and the seasons change. The hot, dry summer gives way to the milder days of autumn. You continue your routine of work, occasional visits to the public baths, and evenings spent in conversation with friends at a local tavern. Life goes on as it always has. Then one day, startling news reaches Athens. One of the Roman envoys to Illyria has been killed, possibly on the orders of Queen Tutor herself. Even more shocking is what follows. Rome has declared war on Illyria and sent a massive force of 22,000 men and 200 ships across the Adriatic. This news causes a stir even in Athens. Such a force is impressive, and its deployment so far from Roman territory is unprecedented. You discuss it with your friends that evening over watered wine. "The Romans are fools," says one of your companions, a merchant who trades in olive oil. "They know nothing of the eastern seas. The Illyrians will make short work of them." "I'm not so sure," counters another, older man who once served as a soldier. "I've heard the Roman legions are formidable. They defeated Carthage after all." "But that was different," argues the first man. "This is not their territory. They don't understand our part of the world." You listen to the debate without offering an opinion. Politics has always seemed a dangerous game to you, best left to those with the wealth and connections to play it safely. Still, you can't help but feel a vague unease about these developments. That unease proves justified when, barely a year later, news arrives that the Roman campaign has been a complete success. Queen Tutor has been forced to accept humiliating peace terms, giving up much of her territory and agreeing to pay tribute to Rome. The Roman Republic now has a foothold across the Adriatic, much closer to Greece than ever before. For the first time, you begin to wonder if perhaps Athens, and all of Greece, should be paying more attention to this rising power in the West. More years pass. You grow older, your hair beginning to grey at the temples, your back aching more persistently after a long day's work. The world around you continues to change. Philip V becomes king of Macedon after the death of Antigonus. In the west, rumours spread of another conflict brewing between Rome and Carthage. Then, in 218 BC, those rumours become reality. Hannibal, the brilliant Carthaginian general, crosses the Alps with an army that includes war elephants and invades Italy itself. All of Greece watches with interest as Rome faces its greatest challenge yet. You find yourself following the news of this distant war more closely than you would have imagined. Each report of a Carthaginian victory sends ripples of excitement through Athens, not because the Athenians particularly love Carthage, but because anything that humbles the increasingly powerful and arrogant Romans seems like good news. Hannibal defeated them at Lake Trasimene, announces one of your friends excitedly one evening. They say the Romans lost 15,000 men. And now he's in Italy itself, adds another. Imagine Rome could fall. The prospect seems to delight everyone in the tavern, everyone except the old soldier, who remains thoughtful. If Rome falls, he says quietly, what then? Do you think Carthage will leave Greece alone if they become the dominant power in the Mediterranean? His words cast a momentary pall over the celebration, but it's quickly forgotten as more wine is poured. Yet you find yourself pondering his question later that night as you lie on your sleeping mat, staring at the ceiling beams of your modest home. What you don't know, what no one in Athens yet knows, is that King Philip Theof of Macedon is asking himself the same question, but he's reaching a very different conclusion. Seeing Rome vulnerable, Philip decides to ally himself with Hannibal, hoping to expand Macedonian power while Rome is distracted. It's a fateful decision that will eventually bring Roman legions to Greek soil. The seasons turn into years. Reports from the west are confused and contradictory. Hannibal remains undefeated in the field, yet Rome somehow endures. The war drags on, and gradually attention in Athens turns to more immediate concerns. For you, those concerns include the increasing pain in your joints that makes your work more difficult each year and the rising cost of food in the market. You're getting by, but barely. You've never married, you couldn't afford to support a family on your meagre earnings, and sometimes the loneliness weighs on you as heavily as your physical discomforts. Then one morning, as you're selecting vegetables at a market stall, a commotion erupts at the edge of the agora. A messenger has arrived, clearly having ridden hard to bring news. A crowd quickly gathers around him. You move closer, curious despite yourself. The messenger's voice carries across the market. Rome has defeated Carthage. Hannibal has been recalled to defend his homeland. The Roman general Scipio has invaded Africa itself. A murmur runs through the crowd. This is unexpected news. Despite all his victories, Hannibal has been outmaneuvered strategically, and Rome, rather than collapsing, has somehow found the strength to take the war to Carthaginian territory. What of King Philip? Someone asks. He allied with Carthage. The messenger's expression is grim. The Romans have not forgotten. Even now they prepare to turn their attention eastward. A chill runs down your spine despite the warm spring air. Suddenly, Rome doesn't seem so distant anymore. The First Macedonian War, as it will later be called, ends without much direct conflict between Roman and Macedonian forces. Rome, still focused on defeating Carthage, is content with a peace treaty that essentially maintains the status quo. But you and every other Greek with any political awareness knows it's only a temporary reprieve. And indeed, just 3 years after finally defeating Carthage at the Battle of Zama in 202 BC, Rome turns its full attention to the east. Complaints from Rhodes and Pergamon about Macedonian aggression give the Romans the pretext they need to declare war on Philip V. This time, there will be no half measures. The Second Macedonian War has begun. You're older now, approaching what Greeks consider old age. Your hands, once so skilled and strong, are gnarled with arthritis. You've had to take on an apprentice to help with the more demanding aspects of metalworking, but you still visit the agora daily, as much for the news and conversation as for supplies. And the news these days is all about Rome. They've landed at Apollonia, says a merchant who specializes in imported Italian wine. 20,000 legionaries under Consul Galba. The Aetolian League has allied with them against Philip, adds a sailor, fresh from the port of Piraeus, and there are rumours that Pergamon and Rhodes have contributed ships. You listen quietly, your heart heavy. The Greeks are doing what they've always done, fighting among themselves, inviting outside powers to help in their internal squabbles. It's how Philip of Macedon, Alexander's father, gained control of Greece a century and a half ago. Now history seems to be repeating itself, but with Rome in the role of conqueror. What of Athens, you ask? Where do we stand? The question brings uncomfortable silence. Athens, once the proud leader of the Delian League, the city that defied the Persian Empire, is now reduced to a minor player in the great game of Mediterranean politics. Your city has declared for Rome, seeing the Romans as preferable to Macedonian domination. But in truth, Athens has little choice or voice in the matter. As the war progresses, you follow the reports as best you can. The Roman consul Titus Quinctius Flamininus has taken command. Unlike his predecessors, he seems to understand Greek politics and speaks the language well. He declares that Rome comes not as a conqueror but as a liberator to free the Greek cities from Macedonian oppression. Many Greeks, including many Athenians, believe him. You're not so sure. You've lived long enough to grow skeptical of anyone who claims to wage war for the benefit of others. The decisive moment comes in 197 BC at a place called Cynocephalae in Thessaly. The Roman legions meet Philip's phalanx in open battle for the first time. The result shocks the Greek world. You hear the news in the Agora, delivered by a man who claims his brother fought in the battle. The phalanx drove back the Romans at first, he recounts to the gathered crowd, but the ground was uneven and gaps opened in the formation. The Romans sent their men into those gaps with their short swords, and he draws a finger across his throat. Butchery, 8,000 Macedonians dead, 5,000 captured. Philip barely escaped with his life. You feel something shift in the world at that moment. The phalanx, the Greek military formation that had dominated warfare since the time of Philip II, that had conquered the Persian Empire under Alexander, had been defeated by Roman tactics and discipline. It is as if the foundations of your world have cracked. The terms imposed on Philip V are harsh. He must withdraw from all Greek territories, reduce his fleet to token size, and pay a massive indemnity to Rome. More importantly, he must become a Roman ally, effectively a client king. The next year, at the Isthmian Games, Flamininus makes a dramatic announcement that is soon reported throughout Greece. The Senate and people of Rome and their commander, Titus Quinctius, having defeated King Philip and the Macedonians in war, declare the following peoples free, without garrison or tribute, in full enjoyment of their ancestral laws: the Corinthians, Phocians, Locrians, Euboeans, Phthiatic Achaeans, Magnesians, Thessalians, and Parabians. The proclamation is met with such jubilation that they say birds flying overhead were stunned by the noise and fell from the sky. Greece is free, no longer under Macedonian control. But you, in your wisdom born of years, understand what many of your fellow Greeks do not. Freedom granted can also be freedom taken away. Rome may call itself a liberator, but it has no intention of leaving the Greek world to its own devices. This is not the end of Roman involvement in Greece, but merely the beginning. You're proven right far sooner than even you expected. Just 5 years after Cynocephalae, another power threatens Greece, Antiochus III, king of the Seleucid Empire, who has crossed into Europe with his army. Rome, now firmly established as the protector of Greek freedom, once again sends its legions eastward. The Aetolian League, previously Rome's ally against Philip, now switches sides and supports Antiochus. They've realised too late that they've merely exchanged one master for another, but it's a futile gesture. At Thermopylae, the same narrow pass where Leonidas and his 300 Spartans made their famous stand against the Persians, the Romans utterly defeat Antiochus and force him back to Asia. The Romans follow, crossing into Asia Minor and defeating Antiochus again at Magnesia in 190 BC. The Seleucid king is forced to abandon all his territories in Asia Minor and pay an even larger indemnity than was imposed on Philip. And the Aetolians? Rome makes an example of them. Their league is stripped of much of its territory and independence, reduced to a Roman client state. The message to the rest of Greece is clear. Opposition to Rome will not be tolerated. You watch all this unfold from Athens, your body growing frailer as the years pass. You rely more and more on your apprentice, who now does most of the actual metalworking while you supervise and teach. Your world has contracted to your workshop, your modest home, and the short walks between them. But your mind remains sharp, and you continue to follow the shifting politics of Greece and Rome. You see how Rome, having declared the Greeks free, nevertheless keeps its legions in strategic locations. How Roman advisors influence the policies of supposedly independent Greek cities. How Roman merchants and businessmen gradually gain control of more and more of the Greek economy. It is conquest by another name, slower but perhaps more thorough than outright military occupation. Then in 179 BC, Philip V of Macedon dies and is succeeded by his son Perseus. The new king chafes under the restrictions imposed by Rome and begins to rebuild Macedonian strength. He forms alliances with other Greek states and even with tribes to the north in Thrace. Rome watches these developments with growing alarm. The memory of Hannibal's invasion is still fresh, and the Senate has no intention of allowing another potential enemy to gain strength. Accusations and counter-accusations fly between Rome and Macedon. Diplomatic missions come and go. Tensions escalate, and in 171 BC, Rome declares war on Perseus. The Third Macedonian War has begun. You are very old now, one of the elders of Athens. Your hair is white, your skin wrinkled and spotted with age, your back permanently bent. You can no longer walk to the agora, but friends and your former apprentice bring you news along with food and wine. The war is not going well for Rome at first. Perseus wins several victories, including a significant cavalry engagement at Callinicus. For a brief moment, it seems as if Macedon might reassert itself as a power in Greece. But Rome is relentless. A new consul, Lucius Aemilius Paulus, takes command of the Roman forces in Greece, and in 168 BC at Pydna, the Roman legions and the Macedonian phalanx meet in battle once more. The result is even more decisive than cynocephaly. The Macedonian army is virtually annihilated. Perseus flees, only to be captured soon after. He will end his days as a prisoner in Italy. The consequences for Macedon are devastating. The kingdom that had dominated northern Greece since the time of Philip II, that had produced Alexander the Great and conquered half the known world, ceases to exist as a unified state. The Romans divide it into 4 separate republics, each forbidden to have relations with the others. A heavy tribute is imposed, and all the royal mines are closed, destroying the Macedonian economy. As for the rest of Greece, any city or league suspected of having sympathized with Perseus faces Roman retribution. 70 towns in Epirus are destroyed, and 150,000 people are enslaved. The message is brutally clear. Resistance is futile. You receive this news in your bed where you now spend most of your days. Your former apprentice, now a master craftsman in his own right, sits beside you and holds your frail hand as he tells you what has happened. What will become of Athens, you ask, your voice barely above a whisper. Of Greece? He squeezes your hand gently. We will endure, as we always have. The Romans may control our bodies, but they cannot take our minds, our culture. Already they send their sons to study with our philosophers. They copy our art, our architecture. In time, perhaps we will conquer them in our own way. You smile weakly, wanting to believe him, but as you drift into sleep, you can't help but wonder if Greece will ever truly be free again. What you cannot know, as your eyes close and your breathing slows, is that the final act of the Roman conquest of Greece is yet to come, that the Achaean League will make one last desperate bid for independence, that in 146 BC, the same year that Rome finally destroys Carthage, the consul Lucius Mummius will defeat the Achaean army at Corinth and raze that beautiful city to the ground, selling its population into slavery. With that act, all pretense of Greek freedom will end. Greece will formally become the Roman province of Achaea, directly governed by a Roman proconsul. But perhaps it's better that you don't live to see it. Better to die with at least the illusion that something of the old Greece, the Greece of Pericles and Socrates, of democracy and philosophy, might survive under Roman rule. As sleep overtakes you, your muscles relax and your breath slows. The weight of age lifts from your tired bones. For the first time in years, you feel no pain, no stiffness. Your breathing gets deeper, more rhythmic, matching the gentle cadence of waves lapping against the shore of the Aegean. The light fades and you drift away, leaving behind a world in transition, a world where Greece's golden age is ending and Rome's is just beginning, a world where two great civilizations have collided and nothing will ever be the same. Your eyes open to the warm glow of morning light filtering through a small window. You're in a modest but comfortable home in Corinth, once one of the greatest trading cities of Greece. The year is 44 BC, exactly 100 years after Rome's final conquest of Greece. And your life straddles two worlds. The ancient Greek heritage of your ancestors and the Roman present that governs every aspect of your existence. The rough wool of your blanket scratches against your skin as you push yourself up from your sleeping pallet. Your bare feet touch the cool tiles of the floor, sending a slight shiver up your spine despite the warm air. Outside, you can already hear the city coming to life. The shouts of merchants, the rumble of cartwheels on stone streets, the distant sound of hammers from the shipyards. This Corinth is not the Corinth of old legends. That city was destroyed completely by the Roman consul Lucius Mummius in 146 BC, its buildings razed, its treasures carried off to Rome, its people sold into slavery. For nearly a century, the site lay abandoned, an empty warning of what happened to those who defied Rome's will. But you were born in the New Corinth, the Roman colony founded by Julius Caesar himself just 2 years before your birth. Your father, a Greek from Athens, came here seeking opportunity in the reborn city. Your mother was the daughter of an Italian merchant who settled here among the first colonists. You are, in your very blood, the merging of Greece and Rome that defines the world you live in. As you splash water from a clay basin onto your face, the coolness banishing the last vestiges of sleep, you contemplate the day ahead. You work as a scribe and translator in the office of a Roman official, using your fluency in both Greek and Latin to bridge the gap between the Roman administrators and the local Greek population. It's a respectable position that places you in the middle class of colonial society, neither rich nor poor, neither fully Roman nor entirely Greek. You dress quickly in a simple tunic, its style a blend of Greek and Roman fashions. The fabric is local, but the cut follows the current trend in Italy. Around your shoulders, you drape a light cloak, protection against the morning chill that will burn off once the sun rises higher. Your sandals are well worn but of good quality, comfortable for walking the steep streets of Corinth. Before leaving your home, you take a moment to check your appearance in a small bronze mirror. Your features reflect your mixed heritage, the high forehead and straight nose of your Greek father, the darker complexion and round chin of your Italian mother. Your hair is cut short in the Roman style, though many full-blooded Greeks still wear theirs longer. Such choices are not merely aesthetic in this world where identity is increasingly fluid. The streets outside are already busy. Corinth's position on the narrow isthmus connecting the Peloponnese to the rest of Greece has always made it a crucial trade hub. Under Roman rule, it has regained much of its former commercial importance, though now serving the interests of Rome rather than Greece. You weave through the morning crowd, nodding to acquaintances, a mixture of Roman colonists, Greeks, and visitors from across the Mediterranean. The buildings around you tell the story of the city's rebirth. Roman architectural styles dominate the newer structures, particularly the government buildings and the homes of wealthy colonists. But Greek influences remain visible in many details, from the proportions of columns to the decorative elements adorning even Roman-style buildings. The smell of freshly baked bread draws you to a small bakery tucked into the corner of a side street. Your stomach growls, reminding you that you left home without breaking your fast. The baker, a stout Greek woman whose family has been in the bread business for generations, greets you by name. "The usual?" she asks in Greek, already reaching for a small loaf of her specialty, a wheat bread sweetened with honey and studded with dried figs. "Please," you reply in the same language, "and some cheese if you have it." She wraps the bread in a scrap of linen and adds a small wedge of goat cheese, accepting your coins with a smile. "Did you hear the news?" she asks, leaning forward conspiratorially. "What news?" The baker is known for her gossip as much as her bread, and while you're sometimes skeptical of her more outlandish tales, she often has genuine information before it becomes widely known. "They say Caesar has been murdered," she whispers, her eyes wide. "In Rome, stabbed in their Senate house by his own friends." Your hand freezes halfway to your mouth, the bread forgotten. "Caesar? Dead? Are you certain?" She nods vigorously. "A merchant ship arrived last night from Brundisium. The captain told my cousin's husband, who works at the docks. They say it happened on the Ides of March." Your mind races. Julius Caesar, conqueror of Gaul, victor in Rome's civil war, dictator of the Republic, and the founder of this very colony where you live, assassinated by his fellow Romans. If true, this is momentous news that will affect the entire Mediterranean world, including your corner of it. "I should go," you say, tucking the bread and cheese into your satchel. "Thank you for telling me." As you continue toward the administrative buildings where you work, you notice small groups of people huddled in conversation, their expressions worried. It seems the baker is not the only one who's heard the news. Roman citizens look particularly concerned. Their status and security in this distant colony depends on stability in Rome itself. The governmental complex comes into view, its imposing facade built in the Roman style, but with subtle Greek elements that make it less foreign to local eyes. This architectural blending is deliberate. Rome has learned that total suppression of local culture creates resentment, while selective adoption and adaptation fosters acceptance. Inside, the usual ordered calm of the administrative offices has been replaced by barely controlled chaos. Officials hurry from room to room, documents clutched in their hands. Clerks and scribes like yourself stand in small clusters, their work temporarily forgotten as they discuss the rumours. Your supervisor, Gaius Septimius, a middle-aged Roman from central Italy who has been in Corinth for a decade, beckons you urgently when he spots you entering. "There you are," he says in Latin, his voice low but intense. "You've heard, I assume, about Caesar?" "Yes, just now in the market. Is it confirmed?" He nods grimly. "Official word arrived by special courier an hour ago. Caesar is dead, stabbed 23 times by a group of senators led by Brutus and Cassius." He runs a hand through his thinning hair. "Gods, what a mess! The whole republic could collapse into civil war again." The implications of his words sink in. You remember the stories your father told you about the last Roman civil war, how it spilled over into Greece, bringing armies from both sides to ravage the land. Battles were fought near Thessalonica and Athens. Athenians chose the losing side, supporting Pompey over Caesar, and suffered for it afterward, though the city was spared outright destruction. What happens now, you ask, keeping your voice steady despite your growing unease? That's what we're trying to determine, Septimius replies. For now, we maintain order and continue our duties. Rome endures with or without Caesar. He straightens his toga, a habitual gesture when he's trying to project authority. I need you to translate an announcement for the Greek population. It must be posted in the Agora by midday. You nod, accepting the tablet he hands you. The Latin text is brief but carefully worded, acknowledging Caesar's death while emphasizing that Roman authority in the province remains unchanged. There is no mention of who might succeed the dictator or what political changes might follow in Rome. As you settle at your desk to craft a Greek translation that captures both the letter and spirit of the announcement, your mind wanders to the larger questions raised by Caesar's assassination. You've lived your entire life in a world dominated by Rome, as did your parents before you. The Greek independence your grandparents might have remembered in their youth seems like ancient history. Yet beneath the surface of Roman rule, Greek culture has not just survived, but in many ways thrived. The Romans may have conquered Greece militarily and politically, but they've also been captivated by Greek art, literature, philosophy, and science. As the Roman poet Horace famously observed, "Captured Greece has captured her fierce conqueror." You see this cultural exchange daily in your work as a translator. Roman officials study Greek philosophy and send their children to be educated by Greek tutors. Greek architects and artists find eager patrons among wealthy Romans. Even the religions have begun to blend, with Roman gods identified with their Greek counterparts, Jupiter with Zeus, Mars with Ares, Venus with Aphrodite. Your translation complete, you hand it to a clerk for copying onto the official announcement boards. Then, at Septimius's direction, you spend the rest of the morning drafting letters to minor officials in outlying villages, informing them of Caesar's death and instructing them to maintain order. By midday, your hand is cramped from hours of careful writing. Septimius, seeing your discomfort, dismisses you for a meal break. "Take an hour," he says. "Clear your head, but don't go far. We may need you this afternoon if there are developments." Grateful for the respite, you step out into the bright sunlight of a spring day. The main forum is crowded now. People gathered around the announcement boards where your translation has been posted. The mood is tense but not panicked. Corinth has prospered under Roman rule, and while few here would have personally loved Caesar, stability is good for business. You find a small wine shop with a view of the forum and order a cup of watered wine and a plate of olives to go with the bread and cheese from the morning. The shopkeeper, recognizing you as someone who works in the administration, offers a small discount. "Troubling news," he comments as he pours your wine. "What do you think will happen now?" You choose your words carefully. As a government employee, your opinions carry weight, and in uncertain times, careless talk can be dangerous. Rome has weathered crises before, you say diplomatically. The Republic will continue. But even as you speak, you wonder if that's true. Caesar had been making himself increasingly powerful, taking on titles and honours unprecedented in Roman history. Some feared or hoped he planned to make himself king, a title detested in the Roman Republic since the overthrow of the monarchy 5 centuries earlier. Was his assassination a last defence of republican values, as the killers would no doubt claim, or merely another power play in Rome's increasingly factional politics? And what of Mark Antony, Caesar's loyal lieutenant, or Octavian, Caesar's young grandnephew and adopted son? They would surely seek vengeance against the assassins. The pieces are in place for another civil war, and Greece, your home, lies directly between Rome and the eastern provinces where Brutus and Cassius have fled. Your thoughts are interrupted by a commotion in the forum. A centurion from the small garrison that maintains order in Corinth is addressing the crowd, his voice carrying across the open space. "Citizens of Rome, allies and provincials," he calls out in accented but understandable Greek, "be assured that the peace and security of Corinth remains our highest priority. All garrison troops are on alert. The night curfew will be strictly enforced until further notice. Anyone spreading disorder or rebellion will be dealt with harshly." The crowd receives this announcement with murmurs rather than protests. Most people here, Greek and Roman alike, value the Pax Romana, the Roman peace that has brought prosperity to the region after centuries of warfare between rival Greek states. You finish your meal quickly and return to the administrative complex. As you expected, the afternoon is busy with additional correspondence and translations. Sunset finds you still at your desk, eyes strained from hours of detailed work by increasingly inadequate light. "Enough," Septimius says finally, noticing your fatigue. "Go home, rest. Tomorrow will be another long day." The streets are quieter than usual as you make your way home, the normal evening bustle subdued by uncertainty and the enhanced military presence. Torches at major intersections cast flickering light and long shadows. Roman soldiers patrol in pairs, their armour glinting in the torchlight, hands resting on the hilts of their swords. You reach your home without incident and light an oil lamp, its gentle glow filling the single room with warm light and the faint scent of olive oil. The day's events have left you mentally exhausted, yet your mind continues to churn with questions about what might lie ahead. A rap at your door startles you from your thoughts. Cautiously, you open it to find Timaeus, a childhood friend who now works as a merchant's assistant specializing in the wine trade between Greece and Italy. "May I come in?" he asks, glancing over his shoulder at the empty street. You step aside to admit him, curious about this unexpected visit. Timaeus is normally cheerful and open, but tonight his expression is serious, his movements tense. "Have you heard anything more?" he asks without preamble. "About what's happening in Rome?" "Nothing beyond the official announcement," you reply, pouring him a cup of water from your clay pitcher. "Caesar is dead, killed by conspirators led by Brutus and Cassius. The government continues to function. That's all we know for certain." Timaeus takes the cup, but doesn't drink. "There's talk in the merchant quarter," he says, lowering his voice despite the privacy of your home. "Some say this could be an opportunity." "An opportunity for what?" You keep your tone neutral, though a sense of unease begins to creep up your spine. "For Greece." His eyes meet yours, intense and searching. "For independence. If Rome falls into civil war again, their grip on the provinces will weaken. This could be our chance to reclaim what was lost a century ago." You stare at him, momentarily speechless. The thought is so foreign to your worldview that you struggle to process it. Independence from Rome, the concept seems as anachronistic as reverting to bronze weapons or worshipping the Titans instead of the Olympian gods. "That's dangerous talk," you say finally, "and unrealistic. Greece has been Roman for generations. We don't even know how to be independent anymore." "Our ancestors did," Timaeus counters. "The blood of free Greeks flows in our veins. Don't tell me you've never imagined what it would be like if we governed ourselves again, if we didn't send our wealth to Rome as taxes, if we didn't have to bow to their proconsuls and praetors." In truth, you have occasionally indulged in such fantasies, especially when reading the ancient histories of Athens and Sparta in their glory days. But they were just that, fantasies, as disconnected from your real life as the myths of gods and heroes. The world has changed, Timaeus, you say gently. Rome isn't just our conqueror anymore, it's part of who we are now. Look at me, I'm half Italian. Look at Corinth, a Roman colony built on Greek soil. We can't simply turn back time. So we accept our chains because they're familiar. His voice rises slightly, frustration evident, because they're comfortable. Our great-grandparents fought against Roman rule. They died for Greek freedom. And they lost, you remind him, brutally. Remember what happened to the original Corinth? It was destroyed so thoroughly that nothing remained but ashes. Would you risk that again? The conversation continues in this vein for some time, neither of you convincing the other. Finally, Timaeus rises to leave, the untouched cup of water still full on your small table. Just think about it, he says at the door. Things are changing. We should be ready. After he's gone, you sink onto your sleeping mat, troubled by the encounter. Could Timaeus be right? Is there genuine sentiment for Greek independence simmering beneath the surface of Roman provincial life? And if so, what would happen if it boiled over in the uncertainty following Caesar's death? More personally, where would you stand in such a conflict? Your job, your position in society, your very identity is built around the Roman-Greek synthesis that Timaeus seems ready to tear apart. Yet you are still Greek in many ways, in your language, in your understanding of the world, in your connection to this land that was ancient when Rome was still a village on the Tiber. Sleep comes slowly that night, and when it does, your dreams are troubled by shadowy figures in togas and warriors in bronze armour battling across landscapes that shift between the Rome you've never seen and the Greece you know. You wake at dawn, your body tense, your mind still grappling with the questions raised by Timaeus's visit, but the practical concerns of daily life soon assert themselves. You must work, you must eat, you must navigate the complex reality of your world rather than debate hypothetical futures. The next several weeks pass in a blur of activity. News from Rome arrives in fragments, sometimes contradictory. Mark Antony has taken control. No, Octavian has raised an army. The Senate has granted amnesty to Caesar's killers. No, they've been declared public enemies. The situation seems to change with each ship that arrives from Italy. In Corinth itself, life continues with only minor disruptions. The Roman authorities maintain a heightened military presence, and travel to and from the city is more closely monitored. There are occasional arrests of individuals suspected of fomenting unrest, though most are released after questioning. You see Timaeus only in passing during this period, and your conversations are limited to brief public exchanges. Whether he is continuing to explore ideas of Greek independence, you don't know, and part of you prefers it that way. Your position in the administration makes any association with potential rebellion dangerous, not just to yourself, but to him as well. Then, nearly 2 months after Caesar's death, definitive news arrives from Rome. The Second Triumvirate has been formed, an alliance between Mark Antony, Octavian, and Lepidus, pooling their resources and authority to hunt down Caesar's assassins and restore order to the Republic. Their first act is a series of prescriptions, death lists targeting not only those directly involved in Caesar's murder, but also political opponents and individuals whose wealth could fund the triumvir's armies. Hundreds of Roman senators and equities are executed, their property confiscated. The news sends shockwaves through Corinth's Roman community. Many have relatives or patrons in Rome who might be affected. Some fear that the prescriptions might extend to the provinces, targeting those with known Republican sympathies. For the Greek population, the news is received with more detachment. Roman political bloodletting is concerning primarily for its potential impact on local stability and commerce. Few Greeks mourn the deaths of Roman elites they never knew. But the next ship from Italy brings news that affects everyone. Brutus and Cassius have fled to the eastern provinces and are raising massive armies. The triumvirs are preparing to pursue them. Greece, lying directly in the path between Rome and the east, will inevitably become a battlefield once again. Your supervisor calls a meeting of all staff in the administrative complex. His face is grave as he addresses you in the atrium, his voice echoing slightly off the marble columns. "We have received instructions from Rome," he announces. "The province is to prepare for the arrival of troops loyal to the triumvirs. Supplies are to be stockpiled, roads maintained, harbour facilities made ready. This will require additional taxation and labour obligations from all communities." A murmur runs through the assembled staff. Everyone understands what this means. The burden of Rome's civil war will fall heavily on the provinces, as it always does. Greek farmers will feed Roman soldiers. Greek labourers will build Roman fortifications. Greek merchants will watch their overseas trade disrupted by naval operations. Additionally, Septimius continues, there have been reports of agitation in some areas, talk of using Rome's internal conflict as an opportunity for provincial rebellion. His gaze sweeps across the room, lingering momentarily on you and other staff of Greek descent. Such talk is treason, and will be dealt with accordingly. Anyone with information about seditious activities is obligated to report it immediately. Your thoughts fly to Timaeus and your conversation months ago. Was it just idle talk, or has he become involved in something more serious? And if he has, what is your duty to your friend, to your employer, to your divided heritage? The meeting concludes with assignments of additional duties to handle the increased administrative load. As a skilled translator, you are tasked with preparing communications to the Greek communities throughout the region, explaining the new requirements and encouraging compliance. The work is grueling and thankless. Each night you return home exhausted, your writing hand cramped, your mind numbed by hours of crafting language that softens harsh demands without diluting their essential message. Pay these taxes, provide these supplies, offer your sons as auxiliary troops, all for a war between Romans that will determine which Roman masters rule over you. 2 weeks into this new routine, you're walking home in the fading light of evening when a hooded figure steps from a shadowed doorway into your path. Your hand moves instinctively to the small knife at your belt. Street crime is rare in Corinth, but not unknown. "Don't you recognize me?" The figure pushes back his hood just enough for you to see his face in the dim light. It's Timaeus, though thinner than when you last saw him, with dark circles under his eyes. "What are you doing?" you hiss, glancing around to ensure no one is watching. "There's increased patrols after sunset. I need to speak with you," he says urgently. "Not here. Follow me." Every instinct tells you to refuse, to continue home and pretend this encounter never happened. But curiosity and concern for your old friend override caution. You follow as he leads you through narrow side streets to a small, run-down shrine to Poseidon that dates from before the Roman rebuilding of Corinth. Inside, oil lamps burn with low flames, casting just enough light to navigate the space. The shrine is empty, save for a weathered statue of the sea god and simple offerings of dried fish and small coins. "I'm leaving Corinth tonight," Timaeus says, without preamble, once you're both inside. "A fishing boat will take me and others to Euboea. From there, we'll make our way east." "East?" You stare at him, uncomprehending at first, then with growing alarm as understanding dawns. To join Brutus and Cassius? Have you lost your mind? They're offering freedom to Greek cities that support them against the triumvirs, he explains, his voice intense with conviction. This is the chance I spoke of, the opportunity to break Rome's grip on Greece. It's suicide, you argue. Even if Brutus and Cassius win, which is far from certain, they're still Romans. They'll still want to control Greece. They're just using Greek discontent to gain support against their enemies. Timaeus shakes his head. You don't understand. There's a real movement building, not just here, but across Greece. Athens, Sparta, Thebes, the old powers are stirring. If we fight together, coordinate our efforts, we can use Rome's civil war to leverage our independence. The passion in his voice almost makes you believe him. Almost, but your work in the administration has given you a clearer view of Roman power. You've seen the reports, the troop numbers, the resources Rome can bring to bear even while fighting itself. It won't work, you say softly. Rome is too strong, too entrenched, and Greece is too divided. For every city that joins Brutus, another will support Antony. We'll just be fighting Rome's civil war for them, killing fellow Greeks in the process. So we do nothing except whatever Master Rome gives us next? We survive, you counter. We preserve what matters. Our culture, our philosophy, our art. We continue to influence Rome from within, as we've been doing for generations. The Greece of Pericles and Leonidas may be gone, but our ideas live on, spreading throughout the Roman world. You can see your words aren't persuading him. His mind is made up, his course set, and perhaps there's a part of you that envies his certainty, his willingness to risk everything for an ideal of Greek freedom that seems increasingly abstract to you. I came to ask you to join us, Timaeus says finally, but I can see you won't. Just promise me you won't betray us, for our friendship's sake. The request strikes at the heart of your conflicted identity. Your job, your oath to the Roman administration, demands that you report this conspiracy immediately. Yet your Greek heritage, your personal connection to Timaeus, pulls you in the opposite direction. In the flickering lamplight of the ancient shrine, standing before the weather-worn face of Poseidon, you make your choice. A choice that will define not just your own future, but your understanding of what it means to be Greek in a Roman world. Your muscles relax as the tension drains from your body. Your breathing slows, matching the gentle rhythm of waves against the shores of the isthmus where Corinth stands between two seas. The weight of divided loyalties temporarily lifts from your shoulders as you drift towards sleep. What choice did you make in that shrine? What became of Timaeus and his conspiracy? How did the clash between Brutus and the triumvirs affect Greece? Those are stories for another night, other dreams, as you float now in the peaceful darkness, balanced between the Greece of your ancestors and the Rome of your present, between memory and hope, between waking and sleep. The summer sun beats down on your bare shoulders as you stand back to assess your work. Sweat trickles down your temple, and you wipe it away with the back of your hand, careful not to smudge the fine marble dust coating your fingers. The statue before you is nearly complete, a figure of Apollo that perfectly blends classical Greek proportions with the more naturalistic style now favoured by your Roman patrons. The year is 66 AD, and you are a sculptor living in Athens. The city of your birth is no longer the independent power it once was. It has been under Roman rule for over 2 centuries, but it remains a cultural centre, revered throughout the empire for its philosophical schools, artistic traditions, and ancient heritage. You've made a good living from this reverence. Wealthy Romans pay handsomely for Greek art, especially pieces that capture what they imagine to be the perfect classical style. Some commission original works, while others are content with skilled copies of famous sculptures from Athens' golden age. The statue before you falls somewhere in between, inspired by classical models but with subtle contemporary touches that make it uniquely yours. The workshop around you buzzes with activity. Your 3 apprentices, 2 Greek boys and the son of a Roman merchant who settled in Athens, are working on simpler commissions or preparing materials. The rhythmic sound of chisels tapping against stone creates a soothing backdrop to your thoughts. The familiar smell of stone dust fills your nostrils, mingling with the scent of olive oil used to polish finished works. Your current project is more significant than most. The Apollo is commissioned for the villa of a Roman official who serves in the imperial household. It must be perfect not just for your reputation, but because all of Athens is eager to impress right now. Emperor Nero himself is coming to Greece. The news arrived months ago and has thrown the entire province into a frenzy of preparation. Nero, unlike some previous emperors, is known for his passionate Philhellenism, his love of Greek culture. He fancies himself not just a political leader, but an artist, a poet, a musician, and an athlete in the Greek tradition. His visit is both an honor and an opportunity. You carefully apply your chisel to define the curve of Apollo's lyre, your movements precise after decades of practice. Your body knows exactly how much pressure to apply, how to follow the natural grain of the marble, how to bring forth the god from the stone. Despite the heat and your aching back, there's a deep satisfaction in this work that connects you to generations of Greek sculptors before you. A voice interrupts your concentration. "Master, someone from the governor's office is here." You set down your tools and dust off your hands on your apron. Officials from the Roman administration don't visit sculptors' workshops without reason. Has there been a complaint, a new tax, or perhaps you allow yourself a moment of hope, a commission for the emperor's visit? The man waiting in the front room of your workshop wears the simple but well-made tunic of a Roman civil servant. His Greek is fluent but marked by a slight Italian accent. "Are you the sculptor Nicomedes?" he asks, consulting a wax tablet in his hand. "I am," you confirm, conscious of your work-stained appearance before this clean, efficient representative of Roman authority. "Good. I bring a notice from the governor's office regarding the imperial visit." He hands you a sealed document. "Your workshop has been selected to contribute to the decoration of the Panathenaic Stadium for the emperor's attendance at the games. You will find the details inside, including the stipend offered. The work must be completed within 30 days. Your heart races with excitement even as your mind calculates the practical challenges. The stadium commission is a tremendous honor. Your work will be seen by Nero himself, but 30 days is scarcely enough time, especially with your current commissions. "This is most unexpected," you say carefully. "May I ask how my workshop was chosen?" The official's expression remains neutral. Your reputation for quality and reliability was noted by the committee, as was your adherence to classical styles, which the emperor is known to favor. He pauses, and your prompt payment of taxes was also considered. That last point brings a wry smile to your lips. Of course, the Romans never forget who pays their dues on time. Their remarkable empire is built as much on careful bookkeeping as on military might. "Please convey my gratitude to the governor," you reply with a slight bow. "I am honored to accept this commission." After the official departs, you break the seal on the document and scan its contents. Your task is to create 4 decorative reliefs depicting scenes from the ancient Olympic Games to be installed at the stadium entrances. The stipend is generous, though not lavish. The Romans are always practical about money, but the real value lies in the prestige this commission will bring. Your oldest apprentice, Theon, approaches cautiously. "Good news, master?" "The best kind of news," you reply, handing him the document. "And the worst. An imperial commission with an impossible deadline. We'll need to work day and night to complete it alongside our existing projects." Theon's eyes widen as he reads. "The Emperor will see your work. If we finish in time," you caution, "and if it meets the governor's approval, tell the others. We begin planning immediately." The next few weeks pass in a blur of activity. You delegate most of your existing commissions to your senior apprentices, focusing your own efforts on the stadium reliefs. Sleep becomes a luxury, snatched in short intervals when your body simply refuses to continue. Your hands grow rough and cracked from constant work. Your back and shoulders ache with a deep, persistent pain that even hot baths at the public thermae can't fully ease. But as the reliefs take shape, your fatigue is balanced by growing excitement. Your design combines traditional athletic scenes, wrestlers, discus throwers, chariot races, with subtle allegorical elements that link Greek athletic tradition to Roman imperial virtues. It's a careful balance, honouring Greek heritage while acknowledging Roman rule, and you're proud of the result. Athens itself is transformed as Nero's arrival approaches. Buildings are repaired and freshly painted, streets cleared of debris, new decorations erected throughout the city. The cost is enormous, straining the resources of the municipal government and individual citizens alike. But no one complains openly. The emperor's favour could mean new privileges, reduced taxes, or imperial funding for public works. Finally, the day arrives. Your reliefs, completed just 2 days before the deadline, are installed at the stadium entrances under the watchful eye of Roman officials. You're permitted to attend their installation, directing the placement of each panel to ensure they catch the light perfectly. The stadium itself has been lavishly decorated, with flowers, coloured streamers and imperial insignia supplementing its classical Greek architecture. You return home exhausted but satisfied, collapsing onto your sleeping couch without even removing your dusty work clothes. Tomorrow, Nero enters Athens, and the entire city will turn out to welcome him. You've done your part, creating work that honours both your Greek heritage and your Roman present. Now you can only hope the emperor approves. The sound of trumpets wakes you at dawn. For a moment, you're disoriented. Usually, it's the crowing of neighbourhood roosters that marks the day's beginning. Then you remember the imperial procession. Nero is entering Athens today. You dress hurriedly in your finest chiton, a garment reserved for festivals and important social occasions. It's been months since you've worn anything but work clothes, and the clean, lightweight fabric feels strange against your skin. Your wife, Theodora, helps fasten your best cloak, the one with the subtle embroidery around the edge that marks you as a citizen of some standing. "You look distinguished," she says, smoothing the fabric across your shoulders. "Like a proper Athenian gentleman, not a dusty stone carver." You smile at her teasing. Theodora comes from a family of modest merchants and has always balanced respect for your artistic skill with gentle mockery of artistic pretensions. 20 years of marriage have only sharpened her wit. "Distinguished enough to catch the emperor's eye?" you ask, only half joking. She adjusts your cloak one final time. Let's hope he's too busy looking at your reliefs to notice the sculptor. Imperial attention isn't always a blessing. Her caution is well-founded. Though Nero is known for his Philhellenism, he's also known for his unpredictability and occasional cruelty. Still, the potential benefits of imperial favour outweigh the risks, at least in your mind. The streets are already crowded as you make your way toward the city's main gate where the emperor will enter. People from all walks of life, citizens and non-citizens, Greeks and foreigners, freed people and slaves permitted by their masters to attend, press together in excited anticipation. The air buzzes with conversation in multiple languages, though Greek predominates here in Athens, even after centuries of Roman rule. You find a spot with a decent view, standing beside a spice merchant you know from the Agora and his family. The sun climbs higher, beating down on the assembled crowd. People shift restlessly, children whine, vendors weave through the throng selling water and small snacks. The wait stretches from minutes to hours. Then, finally, a distant cheer announces the approach of the imperial procession. The crowd around you surges forward, and you brace yourself against the pressure. Trumpets sound again, much closer now, and the cheering grows louder as the procession comes into view. First come the standard bearers, carrying the eagle insignia of Rome and the emperor's personal standard. Behind them march a contingent of the Praetorian Guard, the elite soldiers who serve as the emperor's personal protectors. Their armor gleams in the sunlight, their steps perfectly synchronized, their expressions impassive beneath their helmets. The display of Roman military discipline is impressive and intimidating, a reminder of the power that underlies all the cultural appreciation. Next come local officials, the Roman governor and his staff, followed by Athens' own archons and council members. They walk with careful dignity, aware of their position as intermediaries between imperial authority and local population. And then a ripple of excitement passes through the crowd as the emperor himself appears. Nero rides in an ornate chariot, wearing a purple-bordered toga and a crown of golden laurel leaves. At 30, he is in his physical prime, though perhaps a bit softer than the ideal athletic build so valued in Greek sculpture. His face is full, his expression one of practiced benevolence as he acknowledges the cheering crowd with raised hand. The emperor is followed by his enormous entourage, advisors, servants, entertainers, and more soldiers. The procession seems endless, a deliberate display of Roman wealth and power that contrasts with the more austere triumphs of classical Athens. As Nero passes your position, you join in the rhythmic chanting that has broken out around you. Hail Nero, friend of the Hellenes, hail Apollo incarnate. The titles are flattering exaggerations, of course, but they appeal to the emperor's well-known vanity and his fancy that he embodies the spirit of Apollo, god of music, poetry, and light. The procession continues through Athens' streets, eventually reaching the Acropolis, where religious ceremonies will welcome the emperor. You don't follow. The hilltop sanctuary will be restricted to officials and priests today. Instead, you return home to prepare for the public games scheduled to begin tomorrow at the Panathenaic Stadium, where your reliefs now stand. That evening, Athens buzzes with activity. The city is hosting not just the emperor, but also his entire court and the many visitors drawn by the imperial presence. Every inn is full, private homes have opened their doors to paying guests, and the streets remain crowded well into the night. From your courtyard you can hear snatches of music and laughter from nearby taverns where people celebrate the emperor's arrival. You should be resting. Tomorrow will be another long day, but excitement keeps you awake. You sit with Theodora in the courtyard, drinking watered wine and discussing the day's events. They say he plans to compete himself in the games, Theodora remarks, not just attend as a spectator. You raise your eyebrows in surprise. Compete? A Roman emperor participating in Greek games? That's unprecedented. Unprecedented and inappropriate, according to some, she replies. I overheard some elders at the market complaining. The games are meant for Greek citizens, not foreigners, even imperial ones. You consider this. The exclusive nature of many Greek competitions has indeed been a point of pride, a way of maintaining Hellenic identity under foreign rule. But pragmatism suggests a different view. If Nero wants to compete, who will stop him? Besides, he considers himself a true Hellene in spirit, and his participation would certainly make the games memorable. Theodora gives you a knowing look. You're hoping he'll see your reliefs and be so impressed he'll commission something for his palace in Rome. Is that so unreasonable? You ask with a smile. The greatest Greek artists have always sought the patronage of the powerful. Just be careful what you wish for, she cautions. Phidias created the Athena Parthenos and ended his life accused of impiety and theft. Her reference to Athens' most famous sculptor, who created magnificent works but died in disgrace, is a pointed reminder of the dangers that can accompany great commissions and powerful patrons. The next morning, you join the crowds heading to the Panathenaic Stadium. The U-shaped structure, nestled between two hills, has been renovated several times since its original construction, most recently with marble seating funded by a wealthy Roman donor eager to demonstrate his Philhellenism. Today, every seat is filled and the atmosphere crackles with anticipation. Your heart swells with pride as you pass beneath one of your relief panels at the entrance. Several people pause to admire the work, pointing out details to their companions. You resist the urge to identify yourself as the sculptor, maintaining the dignified anonymity expected of an Athenian citizen in public. Your seat is in a section reserved for citizens of some distinction, not among the front rows where officials and honoured guests sit, but with a good view of the proceedings. The summer heat is intense, and you're grateful for the wide-brimmed hat that provides some shade. Around you, spectators fan themselves and drink from water flasks brought from home. A trumpet blast announces the beginning of the games. The crowd roars as athletes march into the stadium, their oiled bodies gleaming in the sunlight. They are followed by officials, priests who will oversee the sacred aspects of the competition, and finally, to thunderous applause, the emperor himself. Nero has abandoned his Roman toga for a Greek-style garment that leaves his arms and legs bare, marking his intention to participate as a competitor rather than observe as emperor. The crowd's reaction is mixed. Cheers predominate, but you hear scattered murmurs of disapproval from traditional-minded Athenians nearby. The games begin with traditional prayers and sacrifices, followed by foot races. The athletes are impressive physical specimens, the result of years of training and disciplined living. You watch with an artist's eye, noting how their muscles move beneath the skin, filing away observations that might inform future sculptures. Then comes an unexpected announcement. The emperor will participate in the chariot race scheduled for later in the day. The crowd buzzes with excitement and speculation. Chariot racing is dangerous even for experienced charioteers. What if the emperor is injured or worse? What if he performs poorly and is humiliated? As the day progresses through wrestling matches and discus throwing, the anticipation builds. Finally, the chariots are brought into the stadium, magnificent vehicles drawn by teams of 4 horses. The charioteers take their positions, including Nero himself, who has been given a prominent starting position. The trumpet sounds, and they're off in a cloud of dust and thundering hooves. The crowd leaps to its feet, cheering wildly. The race is 10 circuits of the stadium, and at first Nero holds his position in the middle of the pack. But as the race progresses, the professional charioteers pull ahead, their superior skill evident in how they take the tight turns at each end of the stadium. By the 5th lap, Nero has fallen behind. On the 6th, disaster strikes. His chariot catches a wheel on the turning post and nearly overturns. The emperor manages to regain control, but he's now far behind the leaders. A strange thing happens then. The professional charioteers begin to slow down. It's subtle at first, but soon unmistakable. By the final lap, Nero has somehow moved up to second place, and as they approach the finish line, the leading charioteer pulls his horses slightly, allowing the emperor to pass and claim victory. The crowd's reaction is complex. There are cheers, but also knowing looks exchanged between spectators. Everyone understands what has happened, but no one will say it aloud. The emperor has won, as emperors always do, whether in battle, politics, or sport. The victory ceremony proceeds with all the traditional honours. Nero receives the olive wreath crown with apparent humility that doesn't quite mask his evident pleasure. In his victory speech, delivered in Greek with only a slight accent, he praises Athens as the mother of games and arts, the fountainhead of civilization that Rome has had the wisdom to embrace rather than merely conquer. It's a skillful speech that acknowledges Greek cultural pride while reinforcing Roman political dominance. The crowd responds warmly, their earlier skepticism softened by the emperor's evident enthusiasm for their traditions, however imperfectly he might embody them. As the games conclude for the day and the crowd begins to disperse, an official approaches your section. He consults a tablet, then calls your name. Several people turn to look at you with curiosity. The governor requests your presence at the reception this evening, the official announces. Your work on the stadium reliefs has been noted favourably. Your heart races. This is the opportunity you've been hoping for, a chance to be seen by the imperial court, perhaps even by Nero himself. You accept the invitation with as much composure as you can muster, then hurry home to prepare. Theodora helps you dress in your absolute finest clothes, not just your best everyday wear, but the special garments reserved for religious festivals and family weddings. As a final touch, she places a simple silver pin at your shoulder, marking you as a member of an old Athenian family, albeit not a wealthy or politically powerful one. Remember who you are, she says as you prepare to leave. You're not just a sculptor seeking patronage. You're an Athenian citizen, an inheritor of Phidias and Praxiteles. Conduct yourself with dignity. The reception is held in the governor's residence, a palatial building that combines Greek architectural elements with Roman luxury. As you enter, you're announced by name and profession. Several heads turn, and you feel suddenly self-conscious, aware of your calloused hands and the slight stoop you've developed from years bent over marble. The room is filled with the elite of Roman Greece, provincial officials, wealthy merchants, landowners, and visiting dignitaries from other parts of the empire. The air is heavy with expensive perfumes, and servants circulate with trays of wine and elaborate delicacies. The conversations around you switch fluidly between Greek and Latin, sometimes in the same sentence. For the first hour, you circulate cautiously, accepting congratulations on your stadium reliefs from those who recognize your name. You're careful with the undiluted wine, knowing that a clear head is essential in such company. You observe the social dynamics with an artist's eye. The deference shown to Roman officials, the careful self-assurance of wealthy Greeks, the subtle competition for attention and favour. Then a stir at the entrance announces the arrival of Nero himself. The emperor has changed from his athletic garb into formal attire that artfully blends Roman and Greek elements. The room immediately reorganizes itself around him, like iron filings aligning with a magnet. The governor begins presenting selected guests to the emperor. To your surprise and nervousness, you hear your name called relatively early in the process. You step forward, head appropriately bowed but not servile, as Theodora would expect. "Ah, the sculptor," Nero says in Latin, then switches to Greek. Your work at the stadium captured the true spirit of the games. You understand the body in motion as well as any of your classical predecessors. The compliment is specific and knowledgeable, suggesting the emperor has actually looked closely at your work rather than merely repeating a prepared praise. You're momentarily taken aback. "You honor me greatly, Caesar," you reply in careful Greek using his formal title. The tradition of Greek sculpture lives in all who practice it with devotion. Nero nods approvingly at your response. "I have always believed that Greek art represents the pinnacle of human achievement. Rome provides the structure, law, order, roads, aqueducts, but Greece provides the soul, the beauty." He gestures expansively. "That's why I've decided to grant Greece a special status within the empire." A murmur runs through the assembled guests. This is new information, apparently being revealed for the first time. "Tomorrow," Nero continues, clearly enjoying the sensation he's created, "at the Isthmian Games in Corinth, I will officially proclaim the freedom of the Greeks, tax exemptions, local autonomy, the restoration of traditional rights, a recognition of Greece's unique place in our shared civilization." The room erupts in applause and exclamations of surprise. You join in, though your mind is racing. Freedom for Greece? What exactly does that mean after centuries of Roman rule? Is it a meaningful change in status, or merely a symbolic gesture from an emperor known for grand, but sometimes empty declarations? As the evening continues, these questions dominate the conversations around you. Roman officials appear slightly uncomfortable, perhaps hearing of this decision for the first time themselves. Greek attendees range from cautiously optimistic to openly celebratory, though the more politically astute express skepticism about how this freedom will work in practice. You remain at the reception until it would be impolite to stay longer, then make your way home through Athens' darkened streets. The city seems different somehow, as if Nero's announcement has changed its very atmosphere. Or perhaps it's just your perception, altered by wine and unexpected elevation to the emperor's notice. Theodora is waiting up for you, eager to hear about the evening. You describe everything: the opulent setting, the social dynamics, your brief interaction with Nero, and most importantly, his surprising announcement. "Freedom for Greece," she repeats thoughtfully. "What do you think he means by that?" You shake your head. "I'm not sure anyone knows, including Nero himself. It can't mean actual independence. Rome would never relinquish control of such a strategically important province, but perhaps fewer taxes, less direct interference from Roman officials. Which would still be welcome," Theodora points out. Even symbolic recognition of Greek dignity has value after so many years as subjects. You nod in agreement, then describe the rest of the evening, including several potential commissions from wealthy Romans impressed by your stadium reliefs. Theodora listens attentively, offering practical observations about which opportunities seem most promising. Finally, exhaustion overtakes you. You've been running on excitement and nervous energy for weeks, and the strain is catching up. Your eyes grow heavy as you sit talking in the courtyard, the cool night air a relief after the day's heat. "You need to rest," Theodora says, noting your drooping eyelids. "Tomorrow will bring new challenges, Emperor's proclamation or not." Inside your sleeping chamber, you stretch out on the comfortable mattress with a sigh of relief. Your body aches from standing all day at the games, and your mind is still processing the implications of Nero's announcement. But as tired as you are, sleep doesn't come immediately. You find yourself reflecting on your position in this complex, evolving world where Greek and Roman identities increasingly intertwine. You're a Greek sculptor working in traditional forms, yet adapting to Roman tastes. You're an Athenian citizen proud of your heritage, yet you benefit from the stability and opportunities the empire provides. You speak Greek in your home and with friends, yet you understand Latin well enough to communicate with Roman clients. Is this the future of Greece? Not independence, but a special status within the Roman world, preserving cultural identity while accepting political reality? Is Nero's promised freedom a step toward greater dignity for Greeks, or simply a new form of the same underlying relationship? These questions have no simple answers, but as you ponder them, your thoughts grow increasingly diffuse. The sounds of nighttime Athens, distant conversations, the occasional bark of a dog, the soft rustle of breeze through the courtyard plants blend into a soothing backdrop. Your breathing deepens, your muscles relax, and finally, sleep claims you. In your dreams, you sculpt a figure that is neither fully Greek nor fully Roman, but something new emerging from the marble, a vision of a future still taking shape, just as your chisel reveals the form hidden within the stone. Morning light filters through the olive trees outside your study, casting dappled shadows across your scrolls. The gentle breeze carries the scent of cypress and distant sea salt through the open windows. You take a deep breath, savouring this quiet moment before your students arrive. Athens in the spring is truly beautiful, especially in these peaceful times under the rule of Emperor Hadrian. The year is 128 AD, and you are a philosopher and teacher in Athens. At 55, your hair and beard have turned silver, but your mind remains sharp, your passion for knowledge undiminished. You've spent your life immersed in the works of Plato, Aristotle, and the Stoics, building a reputation that draws students from across the Roman Empire to study with you. Your modest home on the slopes of the Areopagus Hill has become a place of learning and discourse. The main room where you teach faces east to catch the morning light, its walls lined with shelves holding scrolls and codices, the newer bound form of books that some of your Roman students prefer. Simple wooden benches arranged in a semicircle await today's class. A table holds your teaching materials, wax tablets for notes, a water clock to mark time, and a small bust of Socrates worn smooth in places from years of thoughtful touches. You arrange your chiton, the traditional Greek garment you prefer, over Roman dress, despite the fashion among some Athenians to adopt toga-inspired styles. After so many years, the soft draped fabric feels like a second skin. Around your shoulders, you place a hymation of finer wool, dyed a deep blue that marks your status as an established teacher without appearing ostentatious. Your first student arrives precisely as the water clock marks the hour. Marcus Cornelius is the son of a wealthy Roman official posted to Athens. At 18, he shows genuine promise, combining Roman pragmatism with a growing appreciation for Greek philosophical inquiry. He greets you in fluent Greek, though his accent still reveals his Italian origins. "Good morning, teacher. I've completed the reading on Aristotle's Ethics you assigned." "Excellent, Marcus. We'll discuss it once the others arrive." More students filter in over the next quarter hour, a mix of Greeks and Romans, mostly young men, but including 2 Greek women from prominent Athenian families. Your class reflects the cosmopolitan nature of Athens under Hadrian's rule, where cultural boundaries blur and intellectual pursuit unites people of different backgrounds. By the time you begin the day's lesson, 12 students sit before you, their expressions attentive and expectant. You start, as always, with a question rather than a lecture. Aristotle speaks of eudaimonia, often translated as happiness or well-being, as the highest good. But is this the same as pleasure? Can one live a good life without pleasure? Consider this carefully. The familiar rhythm of philosophical discourse unfolds as students offer their thoughts. You guide rather than dictate, asking probing questions that challenge assumptions and encourage deeper thinking. The Greeks tend to reference their cultural traditions, while the Romans often bring a more practical perspective, creating a rich exchange of ideas. As the discussion progresses, your mind briefly wanders to how much Athens has changed during your lifetime. When you were born, the city was still recovering from centuries of decline following the Roman conquest. Its monuments were crumbling, its population diminished from its classical heights. The Romans valued Greek culture but treated actual Greeks with a mixture of respect for their past and condescension for their present. But Emperor Hadrian has transformed Athens during his reign. A true Philhellene, he has poured imperial resources into rebuilding the city, completing the massive temple of Olympian Zeus that stood unfinished for nearly 600 years, constructing a vast library and adding an entirely new district now called Hadrianopolis. More importantly, he's elevated the status of Greeks within the empire, creating the Pan-Hellenian, a league of Greek cities that celebrates Hellenic identity while remaining loyal to Rome. Your thoughts return to the present as Marcus poses a particularly insightful question about the relationship between virtue and happiness. The morning session passes quickly, the intellectual energy in the room almost palpable as ideas are proposed, examined, and refined. When the water clock marks midday, you conclude the formal lesson, though several students linger to continue the conversation more informally. This is often the most rewarding part of teaching, the spontaneous exchanges that occur when young minds are truly engaged with fundamental questions. Marcus is among those who stay. As the others eventually depart, he approaches with an air of suppressed excitement. Teacher, I've been invited to attend the dedication ceremony for the Olympieion tomorrow. My father received an official invitation as part of the governor's staff. He says I may bring a companion and he pauses, suddenly seeming unsure of himself. I would be honoured if you would join me. Few have seen the completed temple up close and the emperor himself will be present. The invitation surprises you. The dedication of the temple of Olympian Zeus, the Olympieion, is indeed a momentous occasion, the culmination of Hadrian's most ambitious building project in Athens. To attend as a guest rather than among the general public is an unexpected honour. That's very thoughtful, Marcus. I would be pleased to accompany you. You stroke your beard thoughtfully. The completion of the temple is truly historic. Pisistratos began its construction nearly 700 years ago. Generations of Athenians have seen only an unfinished monument. Marcus nods eagerly. My father says it symbolizes the union of Greek culture and Roman power. What neither could accomplish alone, they have achieved together. The observation is politically astute, no doubt reflecting his father's perspective. You offer a measured smile in response. An interesting interpretation. Let us see what impressions the temple itself gives us tomorrow. After Marcus leaves, you prepare for your afternoon activities. First, a simple meal of bread, cheese, olives, and watered wine, the traditional fare of an Athenian philosopher, unchanged for centuries despite the culinary innovations Romans have brought to the city. You eat in your small courtyard garden where fragrant herbs and a single pomegranate tree provide shade and pleasant aromas. The afternoon is devoted to your own studies and writing. You're working on a commentary on Plato's Republic, examining its insights in light of the political realities of the Roman Empire. It's a delicate intellectual exercise, analysing the strengths and weaknesses of different political systems while living under an imperial power that tolerates philosophical speculation but not actual political challenge. Evening brings a different kind of engagement. You've been invited to a symposium hosted by Herodes Atticus, the wealthiest man in Athens and a powerful figure who bridges the Greek and Roman worlds. Born to an elite Athenian family that received Roman citizenship generations ago, Herodes has used his immense fortune to become a patron of Athens, funding public works and supporting education. Though younger than you, he occasionally seeks your philosophical insights, valuing your traditional Athenian perspective. The walk to Herodes' mansion takes you through the heart of Athens as the day cools toward evening. You pass the ancient agora, where Socrates once questioned his fellow citizens, now restored and enhanced with new buildings funded by Roman emperors. The Acropolis rises to your left, the Parthenon still the defining symbol of Athens despite the newer Roman-funded structures around it. Herodes' home reflects his dual identity. Its layout follows traditional Greek design but with Roman luxuries and scale. Mosaics depict scenes from Greek mythology alongside Roman imperial symbolism. Statues of Greek philosophers share space with busts of emperors. The staff who greet guests switch effortlessly between Greek and Latin. The evening's gathering includes about 20 guests, Athenian intellectuals, Roman officials, and visiting dignitaries from other eastern provinces. The format follows the Greek symposium tradition, but with modifications reflecting Roman influence. Rather than reclining exclusively on couches, as in the ancient Greek style, some guests sit on chairs around tables in the Roman fashion. The wine is still diluted with water as Greeks prefer, but exotic Roman dishes supplement traditional Greek fare. Conversation flows easily among this cosmopolitan group, shifting between Greek and Latin depending on the speaker and topic. You participate actively but carefully, aware that in this mixed company, philosophical discussions inevitably touch on political realities. When someone mentions Hadrian's upcoming visit, the talk becomes more animated. They say he'll be initiated into the Eleusinian mysteries during this stay, remarks an Athenian archon, referring to the ancient secret religious rites that have continued under Roman rule. The first emperor to receive full initiation, adds a Roman official, a great honour for him and recognition of his Philhellenism. And a clever political move, observes a visiting philosopher from Alexandria. By embracing Greek religious traditions, he strengthens his position in the eastern provinces. You listen more than you speak as the conversation continues, noting how these perspectives reveal the complex relationship between Greeks and Romans after nearly 3 centuries of imperial rule. For the Romans, appreciating Greek culture demonstrates their sophistication and legitimizes their power. For the Greeks, Roman patronage provides material benefits and a degree of cultural recognition, even if political independence remains a distant memory. The symposium continues late into the evening with musical performances and poetry recitations following the meal. By the time you walk home under a canopy of stars, your mind is full of the day's intellectual stimulation, from your morning class to the evening's wide-ranging discussions. Sleep comes easily after such a full day, but your dreams are vivid, a common occurrence before significant events. You see the Acropolis as it might have looked in its classical prime, then watch as it transforms, Roman elements blending with Greek, neither completely displacing the other but creating something new, just as Athens itself has done. Morning arrives with clear skies, a favourable omen for the temple dedication. You dress with special care in your finest chiton and himation, attire that respects both the religious nature of the ceremony and the imperial presence. As a final touch, you place a simple olive wreath on your head, marking you as a philosopher of the traditional Athenian schools. Marcus arrives at your home shortly after sunrise, wearing the toga praetexta that indicates his status as the son of a Roman official. Despite his formal Roman appearance, his excitement has a youthful, universal quality that transcends cultural differences. "You look very Roman today," you observe with a gentle smile as you walk together toward the temple district. He glances down at his toga, adjusting its drape self-consciously. "Father insisted. He says we represent Rome on this occasion." He looks at your distinctly Greek attire. "And you represent Athens, I suppose." "I represent myself," you correct mildly. "But yes, in a way I carry a tradition with me. That's the privilege and burden of age. You become a living connection to the past." The streets grow increasingly crowded as you approach the temple precinct. The dedication has drawn people from throughout Greece and beyond, creating a festival atmosphere. Street vendors sell food, drinks, and small commemorative tokens. Musicians perform traditional Greek tunes. The scent of incense mingles with cooking smells and the distinctive odor of a large crowd on a warm day. Marcus leads you to a checkpoint where Roman guards verify your invitation. Beyond it lies a less crowded area reserved for official guests. Here, the elite of the eastern provinces mingle with Roman officials, all positioning themselves for the best view of the upcoming ceremony. "There's my father," Marcus says, nodding toward a group of toga-clad men standing near the temple entrance. "I should join him. Will you be all right on your own?" "I've managed far more challenging situations in my 55 years, you assure him with a smile. "Go. We'll find each other afterward." Left to your own devices, you take the opportunity to study the completed temple up close. The massive structure dominates the landscape, its Corinthian columns rising to an impressive height. The architecture follows Greek traditions but on a Roman scale, creating an effect that is both familiar and novel to your Athenian sensibilities. The gleaming white marble catches the morning light, almost painfully bright against the clear blue sky. Detailed carvings adorn the pediments and frieze, depicting scenes from Greek mythology executed with technical perfection. Gold accents catch the light, adding touches of warm brilliance to the predominantly white structure. As you contemplate the temple, a voice speaks near your shoulder in Latin-accented Greek. Impressive, isn't it? Though perhaps a bit excessive for Athenian taste. You turn to find an elderly Roman in a richly embroidered toga standing beside you. His expression is thoughtful as he gazes at the temple. "Size has its own aesthetic," you reply diplomatically. "Though yes, classical Athenian architecture favoured harmony of proportion over sheer scale." The Roman nods approvingly at your response. "Well said. I'm Publius alias Secundus, by the way. I serve on the Emperor's Architectural Council." You introduce yourself, mentioning your role as a teacher of philosophy. Recognition flickers in his eyes. "Ah, I've heard your name mentioned in educated circles. You maintain the traditional Athenian philosophical approaches, I understand. The Emperor appreciates such continuity. It's one reason he's invested so much in Athens." "The Emperor is generous to Athens," you acknowledge, choosing your words carefully. "This temple alone represents an extraordinary commitment of resources." "Indeed, though between us," Secundus lowers his voice slightly, "some in Rome question whether such expenditure in the provinces is justified when Italy itself has needs. But Hadrian takes a broader view of the empire than his predecessors." This glimpse into Roman political thinking is interesting but potentially dangerous territory for casual conversation. You steer back to safer ground. The completion of this temple fulfills a vision that spans centuries. That alone makes it remarkable, regardless of its scale or style. Secundus seems about to respond when trumpets sound, announcing the approach of the imperial procession. The crowd immediately reorganizes itself, creating a clear path from the nearby street to the temple steps. The distinguished guests, including your new Roman acquaintance, move to their designated positions. From your excellent vantage point, you watch as the procession comes into view. First come the lictors with their fasces, the traditional symbols of Roman authority. Behind them march Praetorian guards in gleaming armour, followed by various officials and priests. The Athenian archons follow, wearing traditional Greek garments but with Roman insignia indicating their officially recognised status. Then comes Hadrian himself, walking rather than being carried in a litter as some emperors might. He wears a purple-bordered toga and a crown of gold laurel leaves, but otherwise his appearance is relatively modest compared to the opulence of his predecessors. At 52, he is still vigorous, his beard full in the Greek philosophical style he has popularized among Romans. What strikes you most as he passes is his expression, genuinely engaged, observant, appreciative of his surroundings. Unlike some Roman officials who view provincial visits as a tedious obligation, Hadrian seems truly present in Athens. Perhaps this explains his popularity here, beyond the material benefits his patronage has brought. The ceremony itself combines Greek religious traditions with Roman imperial protocol. Priests make offerings at the new altar, while official speeches extol both the glory of Zeus and the generosity of Hadrian. The emperor himself speaks briefly in excellent Greek, demonstrating his Philhellenism not just through his actions but his words. As the formal dedication concludes, Hadrian announces additional benefactions for Athens: funding for schools, restoration of older monuments, grain distributions for the poor. Each pronouncement is met with enthusiastic applause, especially from the general public gathered beyond the official enclosure. The ceremony complete, the crowd begins to disperse. You catch sight of Marcus making his way toward you through the milling dignitaries. "Wasn't it magnificent?" he asks, his youthful enthusiasm undiminished by the lengthy proceedings. "Father says the emperor will visit the academy tomorrow. Perhaps he'll stop at our school as well." "That seems unlikely," you reply gently. "The emperor's schedule must be extremely full." But the academy visit makes sense. It connects him to Plato's legacy. As you discuss the ceremony and its implications, you make your way back through Athens' streets, now filled with people celebrating the occasion in a more relaxed fashion. Temporary wine shops have been set up at major intersections, and impromptu performances draw crowds in small squares. "Athens feels alive today," Marcus observes, "more like I imagine it was in its golden age." You consider this as you navigate around a group of dancers. Perhaps, though the Athens of Pericles was very different. Smaller, more homogeneous, citizens directly engaged in governance rather than celebrating an emperor's gifts. But surely this is better than the Athens of a century ago, he persists. "My father says before emperors like Hadrian took interest in the eastern provinces, many Greek cities were declining, their monuments crumbling." There's truth in this observation, you acknowledge silently. Your own grandparents described an Athens still suffering from the devastation of earlier Roman conflicts. Its population reduced, its influence diminished. The city's revival under imperial patronage is undeniable, even if it comes with the price of autonomy. "Every age has its strengths and limitations," you say finally. "The Athens of today has opportunities my ancestors couldn't imagine: peace across vast regions, intellectual exchange between diverse traditions, material prosperity for many. But we've lost some things too. The fierce independence that drove Athenian innovation, the direct democracy that gave citizens a personal stake in their polis." Marcus considers this thoughtfully. Despite his Roman upbringing, his time in Athens has given him appreciation for Greek perspectives. Do you think it was worth it, the exchange of independence for the benefits of being part of the empire? It's a profound question that cuts to the heart of Greece's relationship with Rome, a question Greeks have been asking themselves in various forms since their conquest. As a philosopher, you're trained to examine such complex issues from multiple angles rather than offering simplistic judgments. "That depends on what one values most," you reply. "For those who prize political self-determination above all else, no material benefits could compensate for its loss. For those who value security, prosperity, and cultural continuity, Roman rule has provided advantages that an independent but vulnerable Greece might not have maintained. And you, teacher, what do you value most?" You smile at his directness. I value wisdom, which includes recognizing the world as it is while imagining how it might be better. Greece under Roman rule is our reality, and a wise person works within that reality while preserving what is most precious from our traditions. The conversation continues as you reach your home, where Marcus takes his leave, promising to return for tomorrow's lesson. You spend the evening reflecting on the day's events, recording your observations of the ceremony and the emperor in your personal journal, notes that might inform your philosophical writings or simply preserve your impressions for future reflection. As night falls, you sit in your courtyard, listening to the sounds of celebration still echoing through Athens' streets. The completion of the Olympieion marks another step in the city's transformation under Roman influence, neither fully the classical Athens of history nor simply another Roman provincial centre, but something unique to this moment in time. Your thoughts drift to the students you teach, especially those like Marcus who embody the blending of Greek and Roman perspectives. They are the future of this evolving world, inheritors of both traditions. What wisdom can you impart to help them navigate the complexities of identity and power, continuity and change? These questions follow you to your sleeping couch, where the physical fatigue of a long, stimulating day gradually overcomes your active mind. The distant sounds of the city, the gentle night breeze through your window, the familiar comfort of your home, all combine to ease you towards sleep. As consciousness begins to fade, your last thoughts are of the Olympieion, standing complete after 7 centuries, a monument that embodies both the endurance of Greek aspirations and the transformative impact of Roman power. Like Athens itself, it tells a story of conquest and adaptation, loss and renewal, ending and beginning, all flowing together in the river of time that carries you gently into dreams. The morning bells of Hagia Sophia echo across Constantinople, their bronze voices calling the faithful to prayer. You pause in your writing, lifting your eyes from the parchment to gaze out the window at the city spread below, a magnificent panorama of domes, spires, and palaces gleaming in the early light. The sea beyond sparkles like scattered gems, dotted with ships from every corner of the known world. The year is 532 AD, and you are a Greek scholar in the imperial court of Emperor Justinian I. At 45, you've risen to become one of the emperor's trusted advisors on matters of law, history, and classical learning. Your spacious study in the palace complex offers this breathtaking view of the city that Romans now call Nova Roma, New Rome, though most people use its older name, Constantinople. You set down your quill and stretch your fingers, stiff from hours of careful writing. The manuscript before you is part of a monumental project, the codification of Roman law that Justinian has commissioned. For 2 years now, you've been working with a team of legal scholars to collect, organize and clarify centuries of Roman legal precedent into what will eventually be called the Corpus Juris Civilis, the body of civil law. It's exacting work that requires not only legal knowledge but also a command of both Latin and Greek. The final texts will be in Latin, the traditional language of Roman law, but many of the discussions and drafts are in Greek, which has become the predominant language of the Eastern Empire. This linguistic duality is just one example of how the empire you serve is both deeply Roman and fundamentally Greek. You rise from your writing desk, your joints protesting slightly. The wooden chair is beautifully carved but designed more for aesthetic appeal than comfort. Your woolen robe falls in heavy folds around you as you move to the window, seeking a moment's respite for your eyes in the distance. Constantinople in the morning light takes your breath away, Even after all these years, when you first arrived from Athens as a young man seeking education and opportunity, you were overwhelmed by the city's scale and grandeur. Now it's familiar, but no less impressive. A city built to rival and surpass ancient Rome itself, embodying Emperor Constantine's vision of a Christian Roman Empire with distinctly Greek characteristics. The soft knock at your door pulls you from your contemplation. Your assistant Theodoros enters, a young man from a good family in Antioch, who reminds you of yourself 20 years ago, eager, scholarly, caught between the classical past and the Christian present. "The morning dispatches have arrived," he says, holding a bundle of sealed documents. "And Tribune Belisarius requests an audience at your convenience. He's returned from the frontier with reports he says will interest you." You nod, turning reluctantly from the window. "Bring the dispatches here. I'll see Belisarius in the small audience chamber at the 3rd hour." As Theodoros arranges the documents on your desk, you notice unusual tension in his normally composed features. "What is it?" you ask. "Something in the dispatches?" He hesitates. "Rumours, Kyrie. From the Forum. They say the Blues and Greens were fighting again last night. 3 dead, a shop burned." He lowers his voice. "Some are saying it's more than just chariot racing factions now, that there's talk against the Emperor himself." You frown. The rivalry between the Blues and Greens, ostensibly supporters of different chariot racing teams, has increasingly become a vehicle for political and religious disputes. What began centuries ago as simple sports fandom has evolved into something more complex and dangerous in the densely packed, politically charged atmosphere of Constantinople. "Rumours are like coins," you say carefully. "They pass from hand to hand, but their value is often questionable. Still, make a note. If Belisarius mentions it, we'll know there's substance to the talk." After Theodoros withdraws, you turn your attention to the dispatches, reports from provincial governors, diplomatic communications from neighbouring kingdoms, intelligence from agents in the Western territories now controlled by Germanic rulers. The Roman Empire in the West fell officially in 476 AD, but the eastern half, your half, continues to thrive, still calling itself Roman, though increasingly Greek in language and culture. One dispatch particularly catches your attention, a report from Alexandria about the discovery of several ancient texts in a private collection, including philosophical works thought lost during the fire that damaged the famous library centuries ago. The governor requests guidance on whether these should be sent to Constantinople for the imperial library. You make a note to recommend their acquisition. Though the empire is now Christian, Justinian values knowledge from all sources. The preservation of classical learning remains a priority, especially for someone like you who serves as a bridge between the pagan past and Christian present. Before meeting Belisarius, you take time to visit the small private chapel attached to your quarters. Though you were raised in the traditions of classical Greek learning, you embraced Christianity in your youth, finding in it elements that resonated with the philosophical teachings you most valued. Your faith, like that of many educated Greeks in the empire, blends Christian theology with Neoplatonic concepts in ways that would puzzle both the original Athenian philosophers and the early Christian fathers. The chapel is intimate and serene, its walls adorned with icons in the Greek style, flat, stylized images of Christ, the Virgin Mary, and saints, their eyes large and penetrating, their expressions solemn. Gold leaf catches the light from small windows and oil lamps, creating an atmosphere of otherworldly radiance. You light a candle, make the sign of the cross in the Eastern manner, right to left, unlike the Western practice, and offer a brief prayer for wisdom in your duties. The familiar ritual centers you, connecting your daily work to higher purpose. By the time you reach the small audience chamber, Belisarius is waiting. Though only 30, he's already distinguished himself as one of Justinian's most capable military commanders. Tall and broad-shouldered, he carries himself with the confident bearing of a soldier, though his expression is thoughtful rather than martial. "My friend," he greets you warmly in Greek, clasping your forearm in the Roman military style. "It's good to see you looking well. The legal project hasn't buried you in scrolls yet, I see." You smile at his easy manner. Despite the difference in your professions, you a scholar, he a soldier, you've developed a friendship based on mutual respect and shared devotion to the empire. Belisarius, though born in Thrace to a family with Latin roots, speaks Greek fluently and appreciates the Hellenic culture that now dominates the Eastern Empire. "Not yet, though some days it's a close thing," you reply. "Come, sit. Tell me what brings you from the frontier." Theodoros mentioned the situation in the city. Belisarius's expression grows serious as he takes a seat opposite you. "Yes, that's part of why I'm here. The unrest is worse than most realise. The Blues and Greens have found common cause against new tax policies. There's talk of riot, perhaps even rebellion." You feel a chill despite the warm spring air. Constantinople has seen its share of urban violence, but coordinated political unrest could threaten the stability Justinian has worked so hard to establish. And the frontier, you ask, knowing there must be more to his visit. "Secure for now," he leans forward, "but I've come with a proposal for the emperor that concerns both our areas of expertise. Justinian dreams of reconquest, of reclaiming the western territories and reuniting the empire. I believe it's possible, starting with North Africa, then Italy itself. The ambition of this plan takes your breath away. The Western Empire has been under Germanic rule for over 50 years. Italy, the original heart of Rome, is controlled by the Ostrogoths. North Africa, once Rome's breadbasket, belongs to the Vandals. Reclaiming these territories would be monumental, a reversal of what many consider the inevitable decline of Roman power. And how do I factor into this grand strategy, you ask, though you begin to see the connection? Your work on the legal codex, Belisarius explains, it's not just an academic exercise. By clarifying and preserving Roman law, you're creating the administrative foundation for reconquest. We need more than military victory. We need to re-establish Roman governance in territories that have adapted to barbarian rule for generations. The perspective surprises you, though it shouldn't. Belisarius has always understood that conquest requires more than military might. The Romans succeeded not just because they won battles, but because they built roads, established laws, and created administrative systems that integrated conquered peoples into the empire. Your conversation continues, touching on military strategy, legal principles, and the complex politics of the imperial court. Belisarius reveals that he has already discussed preliminary plans with Justinian, who is receptive but cautious, aware of the resources such an ambitious campaign would require. As your meeting concludes, Belisarius pauses at the door. "There's one more thing you should know. The Empress is particularly supportive of the reconquest plans." This information is significant. Theodora, Justinian's wife, wields considerable influence despite, or perhaps because of, her unconventional background. Born to a bearkeeper at the Hippodrome and formerly an actress, a profession then associated with moral laxity, she rose to become perhaps the most powerful woman in the empire's history. Her intelligence and determination match her legendary beauty, and Justinian relies heavily on her counsel. That may prove decisive, you acknowledge. The emperor rarely acts against her judgment. After Belisarius departs, you return to your study, your mind now occupied with larger concerns than the morning's legal manuscripts. The possibility of reconquest raises profound questions about the nature and future of the empire you serve. Is it still truly Roman, despite its increasingly Greek character? Would reclaiming the Western territories strengthen this Roman identity, or simply stretch resources too thin? And what would reconnection with the Latin West mean for the Hellenic culture that has flourished in the East? These questions accompany you through the rest of your day's duties, reviewing legal translations, attending a meeting of Justinian's advisory council, and supervising scribes copying finalized sections of the legal codex. By evening, you're mentally exhausted, but still restless with the implications of Belisarius's visit. Rather than retiring directly to your quarters, you decide to walk along the palace portico that overlooks the city. The evening air is pleasant, carrying the mingled scents of the sea, cooking fires and distant gardens. Below, Constantinople transitions from day to night. Lamps being lit in wealthier homes, the streets gradually emptying as curfew approaches, the calls of street vendors replaced by the occasional shout of night watchmen. From this vantage point, you can see the hippodrome where tomorrow's races will inflame the passions of blues and greens, the great public square where imperial proclamations are read, and the domed silhouette of Hagia Sophia, the Church of Holy Wisdom. Justinian's magnificent architectural achievement still under construction after the previous church was destroyed in earlier riots. The city before you is a physical manifestation of the empire's complex identity, Roman in its legal and administrative structures, Greek in its language and cultural expressions, Christian in its faith and increasingly in its art and architecture. Streets laid out on Roman plans lead to forums adorned with Greek statuary and churches decorated with distinctly Byzantine iconography. As darkness falls completely, the city becomes a constellation of lights below the star-filled sky. You find yourself reflecting on the long journey that brought Greece and Rome to this moment, from conquest to coexistence to synthesis. When Roman legions first defeated the Macedonian phalanx at Cynocephalae in 197 BC, who could have imagined that Greek culture would so thoroughly permeate Roman society? When Augustus defeated Antony and Cleopatra at Actium in 31 BC, consolidating Roman control over the Hellenistic East, who would have predicted that Greek would one day become the predominant language of the surviving Roman Empire? History takes unexpected turns, you muse. Rome conquered Greece militarily, but Greece conquered Rome culturally. The Romans who came as conquerors became the preservers and transmitters of Greek learning. The Greek subjects who lost political independence gained an empire-wide audience for their philosophy, literature, art, and eventually their language. And now this Greco-Roman synthesis faces new challenges and opportunities. The Western territories have been lost, but perhaps not permanently. The old pagan religions have given way to Christianity, but classical learning continues under Christian patronage. The Latin language has receded in the East, but Roman law and administrative systems remain foundational. Lost in these thoughts, you barely notice the servant who respectfully approaches to remind you of the late hour. You nod acknowledgement and turn toward your quarters, your mind still tracing the intricate patterns of cultural evolution that have shaped your world. Your sleeping chamber is comfortable but not ostentatious, reflecting your status as a high-ranking imperial advisor without the extravagance that might seem unseemly for a man of learning. A large bed with a feather mattress and silk coverings occupies one wall. Shelves hold your personal collection of books, codices rather than scrolls, the newer format that has largely replaced the ancient way of preserving texts. An icon of Christ Pantocrator, Christ the All-Ruler, watches over the room from the eastern wall, while a small bust of Aristotle on a pedestal represents your continued connection to the classical tradition. Your body servant has prepared the room for night, fresh water in the basin, a lamp burning low, the bed turned down invitingly. You dismiss him with a word of thanks, preferring solitude for your evening prayers and reflection. As you prepare for sleep, removing your formal robes and washing the day's dust from your face and hands, your thoughts return to Belisarius's proposal. If Justinian attempts to reconquer the Western territories, you'll likely play a significant role, not on the battlefield, but in the administrative reconstruction that would follow military victory. Your work on the legal codex would provide the framework for re-establishing Roman governance in regions that have developed their own systems under Germanic rule. It would be the ultimate test of whether the empire is still truly Roman despite its evolution, whether it can reintegrate territories that have diverged culturally, linguistically, and politically for generations. The challenge is enormous, but the potential reward is the restoration of a unified Mediterranean world under Roman law, Greek culture, and Christian faith. You extinguish the lamp and lie back on your bed, allowing your body to relax into the soft mattress. Through the window, you can see a slice of night sky, the stars seemingly suspended in the darkness like distant lamps. Your breathing slows, and your mind begins the transition from active thought to the gentler rhythms of pre-sleep contemplation. In this liminal state between wakefulness and dreams, your thoughts drift across time and space, connecting your present circumstances to the long history that preceded them. You see Athens in its golden age, the philosophical schools where Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle once taught. You see the Macedonian army under Philip and Alexander transforming the Greek world through conquest and cultural diffusion. You see Roman legions marching into Greece, bringing an end to political independence, but unwittingly becoming vessels for the spread of Hellenic ideas. These historical visions are not just abstract knowledge for you, they're part of your identity, strands in the complex tapestry of your world. You are a Greek by language and culture, a Roman by citizenship and political allegiance, a Christian by faith. Each of these identities has deep historical roots, and together they define not just you, but the entire Eastern Empire. As sleep begins to claim you more fully, your thoughts become less structured, more dreamlike. Images and sensations blend together, the gleaming dome of Hagia Sophia, the feel of parchment beneath your fingers, the sound of Greek liturgy chanted in church, the smell of incense and sea air, the taste of wine sweetened with honey. The boundaries between historical periods blur in your drowsy mind. You see the Parthenon as it looked in Pericles' time, then as it appeared after becoming a Roman temple, and finally as it exists in your own day, converted to a Christian church dedicated to the Virgin Mary. The building remains physically the same in its essential structure, yet its meaning and purpose have transformed completely over the centuries. Is this not a metaphor for the empire itself? You wonder in that floating philosophical state that precedes dreams. The structures of Roman governance remain, but their cultural and spiritual content has evolved. The empire has reinvented itself while maintaining continuity with its past, adapting, absorbing, transforming, yet persisting. This thought brings a sense of peace as you drift closer to sleep. Whatever challenges tomorrow may bring, legal complexities, political tensions, ambitious plans for reconquest, they are merely the latest chapter in a story that spans centuries. You are part of something greater than yourself, a civilization that has survived conquest, division, religious transformation, and countless other changes by finding strength in synthesis rather than purity. Your breathing deepens, your muscles fully relaxed now. The distant sounds of the city, a dog barking, the call of a night watchman, the faint chanting from a monastery create a soothing backdrop that further lulls you toward unconsciousness. The weight of your responsibilities temporarily lifts, replaced by the comforting weight of your blankets and the knowledge that you are exactly where you should be in the flow of history. In your last moments of awareness, a final thought forms. The story of Greece and Rome is not one of conqueror and conquered, not anymore. It's a story of transformation, of cultural alchemy that created something greater than either civilization might have achieved alone. The Greco-Roman synthesis, further transformed by Christianity, has produced your world, a world with deep roots in the past and branches reaching toward an uncertain but hopeful future. This thought accompanies you into sleep, into dreams of marble columns and golden domes, of scholars and soldiers, of ancient wisdom and new faith, all blending together in the continuing story of a civilization that refuses to fade away. What you cannot know as you sleep peacefully in the imperial palace of Constantinople is how the story will continue to unfold. You cannot foresee that Justinian will indeed launch his campaign of reconquest, that Belisarius will reclaim North Africa from the Vandals, and briefly restore Italy to Roman rule. You cannot know that just days after your conversation, the unrest in Constantinople will explode into the devastating Nika riots, nearly toppling Justinian's regime before being brutally suppressed. You cannot glimpse the centuries beyond your own lifetime, how the empire will continue to evolve, becoming what later historians will call Byzantine rather than Roman, though its citizens will always call themselves Romaioi, Romans. You cannot know that it will gradually lose territory to Arab expansion and internal divisions, yet persist for nearly a millennium after your time. You cannot see how Greek and Roman learning will be preserved through dark centuries, eventually helping to spark the Renaissance in Western Europe. All of this lies in the future, beyond your dreams, but perhaps some intuition of this continuing story, this endurance beyond conquest and transformation, contributes to your peaceful sleep. For tonight, at least, you rest in the certainty that Greece and Rome have found a way to endure together, their destinies intertwined like threads in the imperial purple that symbolizes the power you serve. And so you sleep, a Greek scholar in a Roman empire, dreaming perhaps of Plato's Republic or Cicero's orations or the Psalms of David, all part of the cultural inheritance that conquest could not erase but only transform. Your breathing matches the eternal rhythm of the nearby sea that connected Greece and Rome in ancient times and still binds together the Mediterranean world. The stars wheel slowly overhead, the same stars that shone down on Pericles and Caesar, on Aristotle and Augustus, on Constantine, and now on you. Their light, ancient yet ever-present, watches over your sleep until morning comes again to Constantinople, the city where East meets West, where past meets future, where Greece and Rome continue their long conversation in the language of civilization itself.